in this periods between the classicism literary movement like modern and postmodern. So these are periods in which we have a number of moments, or we had a trend of writing, we had a kind of trend to promote literature and art in a particular way. Let's jump into the topic that is uh, unit number 10. Before that, let me tell you one thing, that is literary movement is nothing but a term which is used to describe what literary different writing displays certain common features. So literary movement doesn't simply mean that okay, it's a movement where we are writing from, where we are writing for any kind of aim, it's not a word, but it's kind of where we are tending or changing our way of writing to another way of writing. So there would be a group of writer or group of poets together felt we have to bring some kind of innovation in our writing format, because following the tradition of the past, they about a change, a kind of revolution in they start writing something out of previous or existing knowledge. And they're doing that one for a long period of time, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or 100 to 200 years. That's going to be known as movement. Okay. Anyway, so now the audio is being recorded, so you can watch this again later on. Okay, so we were talking about this. Now let's talk where we were from Puritanism to medical period. Now, which Puritanism? How many of you know about Puritanism? What is the evolution of Puritanism? Significance of Puritanism? Okay, can anybody tell me? No, otherwise, anyway, I'll tell you. Okay, right? So Puritanism actually, see, English literature or British literature, especially literature written during the time of British Empire, or it is being counted since first AD to the present time. So whenever we are talking about English literature, it's basically referred to the British literature, right? So in British literature, if you are tracing back the history of English literature, you will find that okay, it has been categorized or divided into various ages. In the first place, am I audible to you? Can anybody respond?
Voice breaking, sir.
Voice is breaking.
Yeah. Audibility is there, but it's muffling. Voice is muffling.
Voice is muffling. Okay. Okay. Hope I'm audible right now, and because I think fan is moving over here, so I have to reduce the fan.
Now it's good,
Yeah,
sir. Now it's good. Now it's good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yes. So we were talking about that we will the entire ages or all the periods of English literature into different categories. You will find that in the beginning it was known as the Old English period, from the first AD to the 6th and 7th centuries. After that, we had Middle Ages, and Middle Age also has been divided into various categories, or it has been given different names based on different literary movements, based on different kind of awareness, Renaissance, all these things. Right. So during the time of 16th and 17th century, that is the beginning of the modern age, you can say. That is the beginning of modern age. Okay, so Middle Age is going to end in the 15th century, and from 15th onwards till the beginning of the World War One and World War Two, we have modern age and then post-modern age after World War Two. Right. So during the time of the 16th century, there was a religious reform movement that was going on in England, Okay, when Charles II was the king, or Elizabeth I was the queen during that time, 16th and 17th century. It wanted to purify the Church of England from its Catholic practices. So during the time of the 16th century, the people of England were following the Catholic Church. So as we have Hinduism, we have Islam, other religions, Jainism, Buddhism, and others. Similarly, we have Christian religion or followers of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, or then we have who was believed to be the Son of God, or the people those who follows or believe in the Trinity. They were following three different sections, or they were following three different aspects of that religion, and we are they, probably we are known to those kind of practices. One was Catholic, another one was Puritan, we had Protestant, Anglican, all kind of groups or categories were there. So during the time of the 16th and 17th century, people from England were following the Catholic Church. Catholic Church was run by the yes. So Catholic Church was actually run by the popes of Italy, okay, or Rome. The English Puritans were most graduates from Oxford or Cambridge universities, and they were extremely critical of the religious compromises made during the time of during Elizabeth. Right? These graduates become Anglican priests to bring changes in the local churches. So they thought that we have to change the scenario. We have to bring some kind of changes in our religious thinking, because being a part of English community, being a part of England, why will we for the Romans? They were following the Catholic Church because once upon a time they were ruled. England was once ruled for 450 years by the Roman Empire. Similarly, later on they started thinking about their own culture. They started taking revenge, and then they started their journey to colonize other countries or other territories. Similarly, is how they found lands, and they also came to India once upon a time. Right. So they wanted to purify their own religion. Okay. Origin of the Puritanism and major writers. The Puritans encouraged direct personal religious experience since moral conduct and simple worship. Okay. During this time, they founded the Polymath colony in North Africa. Also, important during the time, most of the writers of the English literature were focusing on religious conversions. They were focusing on the religious transformations and reforms movement. So if we'll go and look at the of the 16th and 17th century, not of the work of the uh, Shakespearean right or the what I can the university weights, but of the writings of the Cavalier poets and metaphysical poets. All these poets were actually saying on the self, the soul, and religion. Okay. Now, Puritans had such belief, absolute sovereignty to God of God. So they were completely devoted to the power, to the rule of God. They didn't believe that okay, we will have to be ruled by a pope or a kind of king during that time. Complete dependence on human beings or divine grace of self for salvation. Personal spiritual experiences were also there, right? So there was also a kind of thing which was going on. They were talking about salvation. They were talking about the sovereignty of God. They were also talking about spiritual experiences by self. And that is why we have common civil wars between among the Christians during that time, among the Christians of the time, like of the 16th century. This is the time when most of the people or most of the writers were getting consciousness about religious reformation. And that's why if you will talk about Milton and Briston, all these people talking about the Christian root or the story of creation of this entire earth or the human beings. They are talking about the genesis of human civilization. So as for example, Milton's Paradise Lost is one such best example, which has been figuring out the entire genesis of Christianity or Christian beliefs. Right? It reestablishes the importance of the obedience to God. So as the main belief of the Puritans are like, you have to similarly here they are talking about this. Okay? Anyway. So one such belief work which is talking about this religious conversion and the belief of religion, the submission of our soul and mind to one singular God is this Paradise Lost. Okay. After this Elizabethan age, like after the end of Elizabethan period of Queen Elizabeth, we had a age called Caroline age or Jacobean age, right? The Caroline age, which was run by Charles the First, okay, which was being also, who was also being, executed because of such controversies between Puritanism and Catholicism. Now, what is the basic features of Puritan ages? First thing is that total depravity as a concept of original sin. Through Adam and Eve's fall, every person is born sinful. So what they are saying is that the concept of sin is actually is the origin of our creation. So it was because of Adam and Eve's fall, every people have to uh, born with their own sins, with the burden of sin. Unconditional election as a concept of predestination. God saves only a few who are selected for salvation. So they were promoting like that, okay, not everybody will be giving salvation, but it is the chosen one, few one of them, those who are loyal, those who are faithful, right? Limited atonement for the chosen, irresistible God's grace that is freely given and it is neither earned nor denied. Saints are those elected by God to interpret the will of God and live uprightly. So as we have in our India, as we have the system of caste system, probably they also had such kind of thing during that time. So during the time of the 16th and 17th century, they also had a kind of hierarchy, and this hierarchy was built by the priest or the popes of the time of Christian religion. Right? They were saying that okay, saints are being selected, saints are being elected by God, as they were saying that okay, to rule, to dominate the uh, inferior societies. Uh, it's a divine rule to dominate, to bring all the colonies under British Empire, to teach them religion like Christianity, to teach them language like English was their divine rule. So they were also believing, they were justifying their uh, way of life, and they were making a history of their own. Okay. This was actually happening during that time, and that time we have Charles I was ruled in England, Scotland, Ireland, and but the thing is that the divine rights of king was also being wanted to establish an episcopal system of church governance in Scotland with bishops by imposing Archbishop William Laud's Book of Common Prayer. This conflict was going on, and because of that, Charles the First had to be executed or beheaded during that time, as I already mentioned. And during this time, we had some poets who are known as Cavalier poets because they were following Charles the First, irrespective of their responsibility or belief in religion. Such poets are like Robert Herrick, Thomas Carew, Edmund Waller, John Suckling, and Richard Lovelace. These are the poets who were celebrating Charles the First because they were following the lifestyle, they were following the or believing the position of Charles the First as a king, and they were supporting him because some of them were supporting that okay, we will have archbishop who will be controlling the entire societies, entire country. On the other hand, people were supporting, these poets were supporting Charles the First as the king or the ruler of the country. Okay. So during the time, they were writing poems, spiritual poems, short poems delineating, which will have some lyric qualities as well, about the rules, regulations, and lifestyle of Charles II and about his own time period. Then we have metaphysical poetry is also another form of writing of that time. In metaphysical poems, John Donne is the pioneer of metaphysical poetry. Meta means something beyond physical, means this earthly world. Okay, so when you are talking about a theme, or when you are talking or dealing with a theme you're writing, which beyond this imagination, it's not beyond sorry imagination, not beyond this earth physical world. So when you are talking about God, when you're talking about witticism, when you're talking about soul, when you're comparing something that is completely abstract, you have never seen, you just have experienced, something that is transcendental, beyond our imagination also. So when you are dealing with such kind of things, it refers to that kind of poetry as well, physical poetry. Okay. And it was popularized by John Donne, one such great poet of the time. Okay. Now, what are the metaphysical cavaliers? So many of the metaphysical poets wrote during the Caroline age, that is the reign of Charles the First, and were contemporaries of cavaliers or supporters of Charles the First. It has been mentioned. Both metaphysical and cavaliers wrote about love, but the metaphysical poets often gave it an intellectual treatment and wrote religious verse as well. It's a kind of comparison, right? Some cavaliers like Lovelace and Thomas Carlyle were influenced by Petrarch, one of the classical poets, but all metaphysical poets wrote in the anti-Petrarchan style. Metaphysical cavaliers like Frederick wrote about nature, but John Donne and other metaphysical drew their metaphors from philosophy, theology, science, rather than nature. These are some of the basic principles or things that we have to know about the cavaliers and metaphysical poets of the 16th and century. The Cavaliers also wrote smooth, conventional, rhythmic verse. As I already mentioned, they wrote lyric or rhythmic verses, which is very short, uh, which is short and simple. On the other hand, metaphysical poets wrote rugged and difficult verse with controversial, even shocking rhythms. Okay, and unconfused terms of phrases, because they were meditating on a thing, they were meditating on an idea which is completely different from these earthly ideas, right? So Cavalier poets dealing with life, style, society, ideas, science, art, whatever is at that time during the period of Charles the First. But when metaphysical launched, it comes to metaphysical poets, they are not only focusing on the earthly things, they are focusing on supernatural or ideas. Okay. So that's why it is very difficult to have a regular rhythm or rhyme scheme for them. Right. The metaphysical poets were also influenced by John Donne and Cavalier poets by Ben Jonson. Metaphysical Cavaliers are Robert Herrick and Thomas Carlyle. These are some of the differences between both these two movements, metaphysical and Cavalier. Okay. One is based on the earthly uh, lifestyles, earthly things. On the other hand, another based on the
Mr. Hussain, are you there? We can't hear you.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, I don't know what is happening, but in between, there is a refreshing page is going on, because of which the I am going to be muted automatically.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So some of the characteristics has also been mentioned over here regarding metaphysical poetry. So what I was saying that we have two types of poetry, two movements over here during this period of time in English literature. One is cavalier poetry, another one is metaphysical poetry. Cavalier poets always talk about the earthly things. They talk about simple and rhythmic verses. They have a very short kind of theme in which they used to write, and it will be simple and lucid in all aspects. On the other hand, the metaphysical poets who didn't follow any kind of particular kingship or religious belief like Puritanism, they were simply talking about love, emotion, feelings, right? Their emotions to any particular aspect, then love towards God, love towards any earthly thing or any person. So they were talking about that. They were talking about ironies. They were talking about wits and wordplays. Okay. And they always talk about something which has a logical and syllogism kind of aspect. And one important thing is that, okay, when they were making comparisons on when they were making word plays, perhaps they were forgetting about something that is going to be totally supernatural. Why people will read about something that is not existing. So they sometimes go beyond and beyond and beyond this earth to talk about their particular as ideas into their poetry. So they make comparison which those comparison doesn't have any kind of relations with two objects. Suppose they were comparing two eyes or two eyes of their beloved with two hemispheres of the earth, like North Pole and South Pole. If they're comparing the sun with the burning eyes of a person, how will that be kind of a resemblance between those two things, right? So such kind of comparison, which is known as metaphysical conceit. When it's a simple comparison or indirect comparison, it will become a metaphor. But here, when they are using it as a metaphysical concept, which is a long comparison. Okay. They also follow a philosophy known as carpe diem. Carpe diem means says the day, or whatever is happening within a day. They only talk about that particular thing. They do not go beyond this present. They do not go beyond the past. If they're talking about past, they will be stuck in one particular point of time. If they're in present, they will be stuck in present. Okay, so they do not move. That talk about one particular day. Now, major parts of the metaphysical movement I already mentioned, like John Donne is there, Andrew Marvell, then we have Robert Herrick. Names of the poets has been given here. Andrew Marvell's The To His Quiet Mysteries is such a beautiful poem, but it's a short poem, not a lengthy one. Robert Herrick is there, Thomas Carey, or metaphysical cavalier poets. So some of them were totally physical, some of them were both metaphysical and cavalier poets. Okay. So we're going to go through it and check your progress over here. Answer to check your progress. The first one is, okay, the questions are given over there. Some of the model questions has been written over here for this particular unit, like discuss the major writers of Puritanism and their contribution to English literature. So first of all, if you are writing about this question, you have to talk about what is Puritanism, when did it started, what is the name of the authors or writers who has written about puritanical thoughts and ideas. As for example, John Milton is one such big example about whom you can talk about, and you can also give example of John Milton's famous book or epic poem, that is Paradise Lost, right? How do metaphysical writers differ from the Puritan writers? So Puritan writer is the cavalier ones, right? When you are talking about this, you can make a comparison, right? That metaphysical poets always talk about the thoughts, the emotions, the inner feelings, right? On the other hand, the Puritan writers talk about their own ideals, talk about religions, they talk about the salvation, the submission of a self to the God completely. They talk about, priest, and they talk about also some simple and lucid ideas in a very simple rhythmic verses. On the other hand, metaphysical poet always talk about metaphysical concepts, metaphysical uh, carpe diem systems. They talk about word plays, talk about ironies, talk about imageries and all these things. Examine John Donne as a metaphysical poet. So you have to talk about John Donne, who is he, then how he is known or best known as a metaphysical poet. So you can talk about any one of the examples. He has written many poems, like one is The Anniversary. The Anniversary is a beautiful poem written by John Donne. Or The Good Morrow. Good Morrow means the good morning. These are two best examples of metaphysical poems written by John Donne. After that, all the poets like Andrew Marvell, Thomas Carlyle, all these poets are the followers of John Donne. So it is John Donne who has popularized this particular kind of poetry, which is known as metaphysical poetry. So this is how you have to approach to this particular unit. Okay. Yeah. Now let's talk about the next one, that is neoclassicism and romanticism. Now, before jumping into the topic that is neoclassicism and romanticism, let's talk about what these two terms refer to actually. Okay, what is romanticism? What is neoclassicism? Why it is called neoclassicism? Right? As I told you that English literature has a history and which can be divided into many categories based on different characteristics, different features, and different aspects of history. One such history or one such historical phase or age is neoclassical age, which is also age, or the 17th century, or the age of uh, what can I say? Yes, the age of Pope. Okay. So sometimes a particular age of 70 years or 40 years or 100 years is known after the great poets or great writer of that particular age, or maybe it is named after the name of the king or queen of that particular age, or maybe because of the trend that was being trending during that particular age. So it can be named after anything. According to the historians, this particular age has different names. One such is neoclassical age, because during this time, most of the poets and writers were following the tradition which was already followed by the great classical writers during the time of the classical period. Roman classical period, Greek classical period, much before the birth of Jesus Christ, almost like 2000 years back. So they were reviving, or they were actually renewing their thoughts, their ideas, their lifestyle based on the ideals that which was prevalent during the time of the classical period of Homer, Virgil, Dante, right? All these poets. It is known as Augustan age because of the classical age was ruled by or known as classical age when it was under the reign of King Augustus. So when you are following the tradition, when you are following the literary style, literary movements, everything from that particular classical age into your present age, it is known as neoclassical, right? One classical age was there, now it's neoclassical. You are modifying it, you are certainly making some kind of adjustment, you're using it in your present. That's why it's called neoclassical and Augustan age. It's also known as the age of reason. Why it is the age of reason? Because in this age, when the people were talking about literature, they simply focused on logic, rationality, reason. There was no place for emotion. There was no place of love. There is no place of any other kind of affection, whimsicality. personality. It was completely object. But on the other hand, when you are talking about the Elizabethan age, it is moved by romances. It is moved by love and other things. So it talks about something nonsense according to according to this neoclassical age. So it has two phases. One is neoclassical. On the other hand, we have romanticism. Both of them are two different things, completely different. Romanticism always talk about subjectivity. It talks about our personal experiences. Okay. It talks about our personal life, something that is belongs to me or the personal I, that I am Dilwar Hussain or I am somebody or something. So when you're talking about your own subjectivity or subjective ideas, subjective experiences, it belongs to romanticism. When the I is important than anything else. But in neoclassicism, it's the reason, it's logic, it's rationality, which is important, order, all these things are important. So during the time of the neoclassicalists, people were so rigid about rules and restrictions. There was no such place for whimsicality, or you can say like uh, place for emotion, laughter, and all these things. All the people were serious about all these things. Okay. Anyway, so it was neoclassical. In romanticism, it's talk about personal experiences, love, emotion. Okay, closeness towards earth, closeness to nature, all these things. They always glorify nature. Romanticism. So let's talk about them in detail. What is neoclassicism and romanticism? No. This period from 1660 to 1798 is known as neoclassical age in the history of literature. For the sake of convenience, we can divide the neoclassical age in three regions, reasonably coherent periods: Restoration age, the Augustan age, and the age of Johnson. Okay, John Dryden or John Ben Jonson. This age can be divided into these categories. Restoration, because when King the First was being killed because of Puritan or Catholic struggle, Charles the First was being executed. Okay. Later on, what happened? After 1666, sorry, 60, his son was being actually again put into the throne. So again, it was known as restoration of the king again, Charles II, who came to the throne. Augustan age, because of the Augustan followers of the Augustan period, and the age of Johnson, Ben Jonson, not Ben Jonson actually, it is Samuel Johnson. So Samuel Johnson, who wrote the first dictionary into English in 1755, he was also a great man, great scholar who has written a lot of things, and that's why this age is named after him, according to the historians of English literature. Okay. So to the neoclassical writers, rules and literary agreements become more important than the pace and importance of subject matter. So they always talk about rules and regulations and agreements and all this. Express the superficial manners and customs of the aristocratic and urban society. The neoclassicists did not delve into the mysteries of human mind and heart. They always talk about what rules, restrictions, logic, rationality, and all these things. Okay. A few writers' name has been given over here in the Restoration age. As for example, not the writers, but the name of the kings has been given over here. Okay, you just go through it. Samuel Johnson's name is there. Georgian age is there. Okay. We're just going to talk about neoclassicism and romanticism. In neoclassicism, you will find these were features that I already mentioned you. That is the imitation of ancient classical writers. These are the features, especially Latin writers. Latin means Roman, right? For guidance and inspiration. The neoclassicists directs their attention at their imitation of rules and ignored the importance of subject matter that delves into human emotions. That's what I already told you, that they always talk about the rules, restriction, rationality, and logic. They do not bother about the subject matter. They do not about emotion or personality or subjectivity. They're always trying to be objective. Respect for rules is the significant features of neoclassicism. If you're not respecting the rules, you has to be beheaded. Such kind of atrocities were there for them. The neoclassical writers lacked creativity and imagination. They just followed rules. Dryden, Pope, Johnson. These are some of the best examples of neoclassical writers. They are the pillars of neoclassical age. These three people: John Dryden, Alexander Pope, and Samuel Johnson. Dr. Samuel Johnson. These three people upon whom this age is also known as. We can call it as the age of Dryden. We can call it as the age of Pope. We can also call it as the age of Samuel Johnson, because these are the three people upon which, these are the three pillars upon which the entire age was actually built on. Okay. For the neoclassicist, the intellect must govern the heart. Reason must keep check on emotion. See their reasons or see their statement, what they actually believe. They're saying that, okay, their heart should be governed by intellect. When you are taking a decision based on your heart, sometimes we also give suggestion to our youngers or some people who are in distress, maybe in problem or situation. Think from your heart, decide it from your heart, we say. But according to a neoclassicist, they will say, govern your heart through your intellect. These are good, but all the time when you're following rigidly rules and regulations, customs, and all these things, you are not going to be a kind of man. You are not going to believe in. Too much rigidity in anything is not a good way, right? Similarly, they will also say that reason must keep check on emotion. If you're emotional and if you're emotionally inclined to a particular thing, before choose a particular topic or before choosing a particular thing to buy or go somewhere, they will always ask you to be reasonable. Is it fine to go? Is it fine to buy? Is it logical? Is it, sensible or not? So such kind of things will be asked. The writers of this period cared for form, therefore content, thought, and feeling were subordinate to form. So according to these poets, the form is important, not the subject matter, not the theme. So how you are framing the poem, as for example, when I was talking about the concrete form of poem, where the theme was actually about a leaf, and the form was exactly written the poem in the shape of a tree. So tree leaves, right? So they always talk about the form. These people always talk about the form. The form is important for them. In which form it has been written? Lyric, ballad, how many figure of speeches has been used, in which rhythm it has been written, how many foods has been used. So they focus on the form because they think that the form will tell you the meaning. The form is more important than the subject or the content. So this is how they were rigid. On the other hand, we have what? We have romanticism. Okay. We have romanticism on the other hand. Romanticism talk about something that is very common. So in one way, we can say that the age of the Western period, the age of Johnson or neoclassicism is an age of aristocrat people. Because there is a sharp gap between rational, emotional, subjective, objective, such kind of gap is there. So we can differentiate between two aspects anyway in a binary opposition. But in romanticism, it is all inclusive. An aristocrat also can be a part of romanticism. A layman can also be a part of romanticism. A mad woman or man can also be a part of romanticism. If you have a heart, if you are sympathetic towards all the things that is around you, you are a romantic person. If you're using a language which is common to people, you are a romantic person, or you belong to this romanticism group. According to Wordsworth and Coleridge, they are the forefathers of romanticism. They got their inspiration from the ancient people again, like John von Goethe from the ancient time. But the thing in their lyrical ballads published in 1978, in the preface especially, William Wordsworth has talked about that. Okay, what is romanticism actually? There he has mentioned it will be built up on a very simple, lucid rhyme scheme. It will have common language. The language should be always common to people. The language of poetry doesn't mean that it should be hard. It should be, aristocratic. It should be very, stout to understand. Always or all the time we have to go or search a word into dictionary if you read a poem. So they said that okay, it should be in a normal format. The language that we use in our daily life, that should be used in poetry. Okay. So let's look into the features of romanticism. First, in subtle sense of mystery is an important feature of romanticism. For instance, Wordsworth reveals the inherent mystery in common object of nature, human life. Coleridge describes feeling of wonder, mystery, and supernatural, and Shelley spiritualized nature. So some of the romantic poets are like William Wordsworth. Then we have T.S. Eliot, it's not S.T. Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, John Keats, Percy Bysshe Shelley, John Byron. All these poets are romantic. Tim Southey, not Tim Southey, Robert Southey. Sorry. So Robert Southey is also another romantic poet. They can be, categorized also. All these poets can also be categorized into two groups, like first generation romantic poets and second generation. Those who were the old poets like Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Robert Southey, they are called old generation. New generation, like we have John Byron, then we have John Keats and Percy Bysshe Shelley or P.B. Shelley. Romantics fascinated by past as the past was remote from reality and the remoteness gives delight to life. The Middle Ages fascinated Coleridge and Keats. Love and discovery for new beauty in nature is expressed in different ways in the poetry of romantics. Keats paints the sensuous beauty of nature, Wordsworth and Shelley spiritualizes them. William Black is also there, another poet, but who is known as the pre-romantic poet because before romanticism got its impetus or full-fledged structure, it was William Blake who was also talking about romantic ideals. Okay. Yes, some of the major writers of this romantic, as I have mentioned, Sir William Scott, he was basically a romantic novelist, and he is also known as the historical novelist. One such novelist like Ivano Waverley, The Heart of Midlothian. These are some of the works written by William Scott. William Wordsworth, like the lyrical ballad, both of them published together, S.T. Coleridge and William Wordsworth. Then we have John Keats, Lord Byron. French Revolution was happening during the time of Romanticism or Romantic period, and that's why they always support a French phrase that fraternity, equality, and liberty. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. This was the common slogan of all the Romantics. Okay? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. This should be the theme of Romantic poetry. Preface to the lyrical ballad. It's a preface which has been attached to the anthology of poems for lyrical ballads. In this particular preface, William Wordsworth has written a 9 pages introduction about what they have experimented into the poems of that particular collection. Okay. So this was what about Romanticism and English, Neoclassicism. Then we have Modernism and Postmodernism. Now, what is Modernism and what is Postmodernism? Modernism doesn't mean that, okay, you have to wear some torn apart pants, right? You have to wear something that is trendy or which is known as fashion. These are not actually moderns. Modernism means something different. Modernism started with chaos. Modernism started with problems. Modernism started with destruction during the time of the First World War. When people were being uh, killing and kneeling down because of certain thoughts which was promoted by one or two of the politicians of the time. N number of masses had to face a lot of slaughters because of one or two people around the world. Right. So more
We lost you again.
it was because of that refreshing. Maybe the page is refreshing again and again. But it's about modernism. Let me just give you an overview. So modernism always cry for the loss. They always cry for the disorientation, disorder. They are problematic into their mind because they want everything in order, like the neoclassicist. Suppose destruction is happening, a world war is happening. Because of the world war, everything was become a hotspot. Every single mind was of that time was depressed and distracted psychologically and physically. Everything was, mismatched, smashed out. So they were crying or they had to bear this pain throughout a long period of time. So they always talk about Dadaism. They always talk about, absurdism. They always talk about something related to psychiatric problems. So they need some kind of orientation. They need some kind of order. And they always look for unity. They don't like disunity. But on the other hand, postmodernism says that, okay, whatever has happened, we cannot actually reclaim that one. We cannot restore that one. So what we have to do is that life is not always happy. It is having all the ups and downs together. Sometimes we smile, sometimes we cry. And this is how we have to balance it. We have to adjust our life. So instead of crying for what we have lost, what we are having right now, we have to be happy with that. So there is no cry for disorientation. There is no cry for disorder. There is no cry for disunity. Whatever we have to be happy and healthy in this one because we cannot reframe the entire earth as it was some 1 year ago or one day back. Nowadays, climate is changing and changing and changing. Even though you are trying to have sustainable development, but this sustainability again have a kind of human purpose. You are using the word sustainability, but for the sake of yourself. You are using the product or the natural resources from nature sustainably, again for the sake of you only. Human being, you're not thinking about nature. You're thinking about you only, not about nature. So can you repay that back? No, you won't be able to repay that. That's why we have drastical change in nature and drastical change in the climate and weather and all these things. So that's why these people, the postmodern, always say that, okay, whatever we can be little, organized, we can be little systematic, but we won't be able to reframe or reestablish something that has already been destructed. We have to be little careful so that it becomes sustainable. We will use them in a limited number or limited way. We are not going to repay that back. So we have to be happy. We have to be satisfied within what we are right now. So these are the common ideas about modernism and postmodernism. In most of the works of literature, you will find the same. If you will read a novel or a poetry or a drama from the modern age or the modern writer, you will find these characteristics that they are always lamenting for the loss. On the other hand, if you're reading a poem or a drama from postmodern age, you will find that they are not lamenting for the loss. They are actually trying to be happy within what they are having. Okay. So this is what we had to say for this particular unit. That is not unit actually. Block 4. Tomorrow is the last class, and tomorrow we are going to talk about the next unit, that is next block, that is block number 5. Okay. If you have any further doubt regarding neoclassicism, romanticism, or modernism, postmodernism, and metaphysical poems, you can note it down. Tomorrow in the beginning, you can ask me. Okay. So anyhow, we will try to finish it, even if it will take some 1 hour and 30 minutes. We will take if possible. Otherwise, we will try to wind it up within 1 hour tomorrow. Okay. For today, you can take your time for read. Please go through the chapters and let me know if you have any problem. Okay. Thank you for attending the session. You can leave.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Mr. Hussain, I have
Thank
one
you.
question.
Yes, please.
With regards to neoclassicism and romanticism, okay. So you mentioned that there are separate ages. So did neoclassicism come first or romanticism first, or both were
Yes,
parallelly during the
yes.
same ages?
No, neoclassicism was the first. After neoclassicism, we have romanticism. So when we were fading up with all rigidity, people were actually moving to talk about the self, their personality, their subjectivity. So romanticism came after neoclassicism. Okay.
Thank you,
If you
Mr.
want me to, if you want me to share the list or divide all the ages into categories based on the time period, I will also share that one tomorrow. Okay. Is it fine?
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I'll forward or I will use it. You can take a snapshot. Okay.
Sure, Mr. Hussain. Or else you could just post it on the group.
Okay. Sure. I'll post it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.